Welcome back to the Pulse. Maxwell Agbagba joins me as we discuss the death of Major Maxwell Adam Mahama. Maxwell, we've heard from the family. It's been a very solemn day. Yeah. The whole of Ghana mourning such a beautiful soul. We've heard from the family, but we also know that the Vice President was there for the President. We know that Ministers of State were there, and the Ghana Armed Forces were there in their full capacity. What were their fond memories of this gentleman?
Well, some of them that we go closer to really told us point blank that they are mourning and they will not be able to, speak to us. So we tried convincing them several times, but we couldn't, we just couldn't get anything from them. Some of them also, if you're getting closer, their facial expression alone, can repel you from going closer to them to even ask them, a question. In fact, one of them was Colonel Agriquashi himself. He told us point blank that he's sorry, cannot respond, to any questions at the moment. A former minister, Jifa Blaguma, we went closer to her. She said she doesn't want to talk. I'm sure you heard the news that her son is also a daughter. He's also a soldier, actually. Yes. And Beatrice Edu spoke to her earlier. Today she said she was unable to speak.
And that day she broke into
exactly, after seeing the remains of Captain Major Mahama, in the casket. A lot of them were not able to talk. Those who mastered, some courage to talk. In fact, the common denominator for all those who spoke to us was, widespread condemnation of the act of lynching, with a lot of people also calling for us to do something about the situation. Days after the lynching of Major Maxwell Mahama, we also heard some reports about another man who was lynched somewhere in Kumasi, another man who was also lynched over 1 CD 50 pesos. So now people are more conscious of these mob actions, and there's widespread condemnation for some of these, illegal and barbaric, acts. One of the people that I spoke to on the ground was the man Ivor Greenstreet. Well, I put it to him. Former President Rawlings actually made a statement that if you have a justice system that seems not to be effective, what usually would happen is that people will resort to their own means of, delivering, justice. So I put it to him whether he thinks that that is the case. He tells me that he believes that this has been part and parcel of us, but we have gotten the rude awakening after the lynching of this captain, after the lynching of Major Maxwell Mahama. So we can listen to Mr. Ivan Greenstreet of the CPP making these assertions.
Total waste of life and loss of life. So it's always painful when you are here to mark a tragedy of this nature, because when you think deeply about the personal circumstances of his immediate family, and it's not a happy thing for them to have to think about it and what they have to endure and what the future beholds for them. It's very unpleasant.
Well, there are some who say that what we experience currently is a failure of, our justice system. In fact, former President Rawlings actually stated that when you have security agencies not providing justice, when you have our law courts not providing justice, people will sometimes resort to some of these cruel means of taking their own action. Do you subscribe to that view?
Well, I think that then certainly is not a reflection of necessarily just today. It's a reflection of the entirety of, our national development sphere before and after independence. Because I think that it is quite normal in many areas for people to set upon a thief and put a nail into his head, and just because there's a lack of a policeman or security nearby does not justify a recourse for that kind of action. So I would rather say that we should look within ourselves and accept that as human beings, as law-abiding human beings, as citizens, as the President was referring to at the beginning of this year, that we are supposed to be citizens and we are supposed to be Ghanaians who have a certain nature. And one of them is to be law-abiding. And to be law-abiding doesn't just mean that there should be a policeman at every junction for you to be law-abiding because you are in fear of a security officer, but because you respect and understand why the law ought to be obeyed and respected. And it's not for every individual engage in the kind of conduct which has led to the consequence that we are here today. So I think it's more about us changing our thoughts, our ways, and our conduct, and blaming ourselves.
He made the point very clear. Who else did you speak with at the event, and what did they say?
Well, I spoke to former Minister of Communications, Dr. Mani Buama. You know, the military and some people in the military actually raised concerns that they do not trust the police to be able to do the needed investigations or the proper investigations to bring closure to this issue, and also to get people, the perpetrators, you know, prosecuted. Later, there was a press conference addressed by the IGP David Asante to Elena Afia, saying they have the capacity to do that. So I asked Dr. Mani Buama, who tells me that he used to be a civilian worker, you know, with the military, and he says he's very confident that they would be able to do a good job together with the police to get the perpetrators, you know, prosecuted.
That with the military involved, cooperating with the police, they will be able to get to the bottom of this matter. I say this as someone who has worked with the military before as a civilian employee. They have a defense intelligence system that I believe will be working very, very hard to support the Ghana Police Service. Beyond that will be the court processes. But after justice is done, and even during that process, what do we do as a people to ensure that we do not experience this again? We would need to have a specific law that addresses mob action, because as we speak now, there's no such specific law. Once we have that law in place and that law begins to operate, I believe that can even serve more as a deterrent to others who may want to engage in such practices. But I would say that it's early days yet. Let's all continue to provide the needed support that we are providing to the family. And beyond the funeral, beyond the grieving period, we believe that as we look up to government to take the necessary steps to ensure that justice is done in this particular case, and then to put in place mechanisms which will include a law that addresses mob justice comprehensively, our nation will be better served.
And indeed, that affirms the assurance we had from the IGP.
Exactly.
Were you able to speak with his colleagues? What were their last words to their friend and colleague?
Well, the information that we had on the ground from some of his old mates, actually from the Akosoma International School, they said that they have a WhatsApp platform, and they remember very well that he put an information on that platform that he's on an anti-Galamsey operation somewhere in the central region, and that he's going to return. And they added that, okay, so who's taking care of the home? And he says, oh, his 2 kids are there, and he believes that he'll be holding the fort whilst, you know, he is away. And then he jokingly added that his 2 children, their only weakness is that they have much love, you know, for cartoons. So that was the last joke that he shared with them on that platform. Now, for his colleagues also, they tell us that they remember very well that when he was enlisted into the army, I mean, they used to call him the DB soldier, perhaps from the home that, you know, he is coming from. They say usually during their singing sessions, he would not join them, and they are sure that they're definitely going to miss, you know, those sessions. Another person that we spoke to at the forecourt of the State House was Professor Ransford Jampo, I should say, of the University of Ghana Political Science Department. You remember his picture was making rounds on social media when with him sitting in a chair with tears rolling down his cheeks, and then a long tribute about how Maxwell Mahama used to be his student, and that he's going to miss him. I was on the ground with AM show host Mama Viuso Boaje, and she had interactions with him. So we can listen to Professor Ransford Jampo right now.
Well, I think it's sad, and it means that we should win the fight against Galamsey. I mean, this is what led to this particular death. And so if we have allowed Maxwell to be used as a sacrificial lamb, then it's important that we don't lose the fight against Galamsey. It's also important that the lesson is sent to all of us clearly, that never again should we involve ourselves in this dastard act, of just killing innocent people. Even if the person is an armed robber, I think due processes of law must be resorted to. And so I'm pretty much certain in my mind that a lesson has been taught. And I'm also happy that a monument is going to be erected in memory of Maxwell. All I'm saying is that the monument should not be confined to Accra. It should also be established or erected in that village where people have no emotions, where even women do not have sympathy. This should be erected there so that tomorrow when they see, they would also say never again.
Is this a lesson that you are sure we've learned something from, that we've told ourselves as a people? Because it's different telling ourselves and...
If you look at the national mood, you would appreciate that for once, even though some were trying to politicize and all that, you saw the reaction against those who were trying to politicize the matter and all that. So I think, and if you look at the people who are here, the caliber of people who are here, you see it's all across the political divide and all that. So I think it's a lesson that has been well learned, and even if it's not been learned, I believe that given what we are seeing here, we would learn something.
You had some personal connections with the late Mahama. You would know what the family is going through right now. Is this an episode that they can ever get over?
Well, we pray that the good Lord would continue to be with them, because it's hard, it's difficult. But I want to believe that if God had not allowed this to happen, it wouldn't have happened. And so he's also capable of protecting them and seeing them through this trying time.
How would you remember him?
He was my friend. He was my former student, but also my friend. He kept calling me and telling me that if you are driving and somebody is driving behind you, park and call me, and all that. I would fondly, miss him.
I wonder who you're going to call now.
And so pathetic. I've heard Professor Jampo talk about his relationship with this gentleman.
Yeah.
He was a student, but the relationship was more than that of a lecturer-student. May he so rest in peace. I know you spoke with Joyce Bar Mokhtari, who is the spokesperson for the NDC campaign.
Yeah, for for President Mahama.
President Mahama.
Exactly. Yeah.
What were her fond memories of this gentleman?
She didn't really express her, her memories of Major Maxwell Mahama. In fact, I asked her what the mood was like, because she came in with the president. So I asked her what the president's mood was like at the time. The former president, I should say. Actually, she says when she entered the living room, the president's face was telling that he was going through, some sorrowful moments, some painful, moment. And we spoke extensively about the lynching. So we can hear Joyce Bar Mokhtari right now.
Indeed, this morning, even when I walked into the former president's living room, I could tell that he wasn't his usual self. He looked very, very solemn. He looked in deep thought. You can tell that this death has particularly affected him greatly. This is the life of a very, very young and promising man whose career has been cut short, whose life has been cut short, whose young family, his two young sons, have been left without a father. Indeed, it also speaks to a larger social challenge that we have as a people, which is to do with citizens taking the law into their own hands. This was a mob action to an innocent young man who was just on a normal routine exercise that he undertakes each and every morning. I'm sure for those of us who watched that horrific video, we recall the young man pleading for his life and trying to even tell them that he was a military officer and not a criminal. It speaks to a much wider social problem. And I would actually want to say that I personally support the calls by persons who have said that a particular legislation should be passed, in addition to existing criminal legislations to deal with mob action. You do know that this action actually raises a lot of legal questions in terms of how he was murdered, who actually delivered the final blow that took his life, and all the reasons why it was done. We saw the video, several faces are seen. They would even have to find out who committed which of the crimes and who actually did what. Indeed, when you listen to all the rumors now surfacing, it appears there may also have been some element of premeditation in this whole thing, because you do know that that is an area that is fraught with galamsey. And indeed, the current president, Nana Akufo-Addo, had actually been making efforts to stem the negative effects of galamsey in several parts of Ghana, specifically in the areas around the Denchira parts of the.
And that was Joyce Bar Mokhtari, spokesperson for former President John Mahama. We know of the family's request for a monument to be raised around the Tema roundabout in memory of the slain soldier. Did you speak with some government officials? Did they say anything to this request that they're going to grant it?
Well, it was very difficult, as I mentioned earlier, getting a lot of them, to speak to some of the issues. I mean, the list of issues that we had that we wanted to, put to them. Those who were generous enough to grant us the interview, those who mastered the courage, was the one who actually, responded to us and then granted us, these interviews. But I'm sure, in the coming weeks, Joy News, as always, will be following up and be, putting those questions to them, getting them to speak specifically to those issues.
All right, many thanks to you, Maxwell Agbagba. But we can listen to the family request that a monument be raised in honor of this gentleman.
It was devastating. It was around 2 a.m. when my phone kept going off several times in London whilst I was sleeping. So when my girlfriend, Mourning, picked up the phone, he said, look, there are phone calls from Ghana, from your mom, from your sisters, from your aunties. When I answered, they told me this has happened. They didn't go into details. They just told me that Adam has been murdered. And I couldn't sleep from then. I started crying. I went to the bathroom. I slept there, throwing up, till I had to go back the next morning to my sister, the mom, to comfort her.
You had the strength to do that. How did she take it?
Well, there was no one who was able to break the news to her, the state he was murdered. So we all just said, he's dead. I took her phone away from her. I took her laptop from her. But when I dozed off, she picked up her phone because it kept ringing. And someone told her, we've heard your son has been lynched. She came back, woke me up, and said, tell me the truth. Do you know what has happened? I still couldn't tell her.
Has she seen the video?
No, she hasn't.
Have you seen the video?
I've seen it several times. I even saw it today again.
Why do you keep watching it over and over?
Just to make me feel comfortable and have patience. If I pretend not to know what has happened, I'll be angry. But I've watched this so many times that I can identify the people in the video. They had the opportunity, to create a hero out of that village, but they didn't. They all took out their stupid mobile phones to video it. If someone had tried to stop it, would have been part of the family. He would have become a hero, would have been celebrating the person from that village. But these ignorant cowards just took his life that way. I keep watching it. I can't stop. The government has been amazing and fantastic. We are happy and content with what they've offered and what they are doing. He's died a hero. We just want him to be treated as a hero.
Is there anything the family would want the state to do apart from what has so far handsomely been given to the late Major?
I'll just ask one last favor, that his monument be erected at a roundabout at the end of the motorway that is being constructed, which has not been named yet. That's all I will request for. Do you know that roundabout?
You're talking about that Accra Tema motorway roundabout?
Yeah, roundabout, not Tetekwashi, but the one in Tema. It's been constructed. From my information, it hasn't been named.
And from all of us here, may his soul rest in peace. We mourn with the family and we sympathize with the family.